All right, everybody, welcome back to Scratch the Vinyl. You guessed it, it's your favorite music podcast, and it's here in your town and all over the world, to be honest with you. So I have none other than Big Red up in here. We got Big Red Brooke Johnson. I got Randy Wilson. You know who he is. He's Mr. Chill himself, and I am raising Kane Stevens, and we're here to raise little Kane on this show. I want to tell you guys, I was going through the internet as I do from time to time, and as much as I hate it, I also love it. And I saw something that it really ticked me off, and I want to share it with you guys right now. So my favorite band, everybody knows, and if you don't, we're gonna school you up right now, is Smashing Pumpkins. And the guy, oh, you know that guy, Billy Corgan, is at it again, and he's saying some pretty crazy stuff. And so Billy Corgan said, and I want to hear what you guys think about this. Billy Corgan said, going forward on tours, he doesn't want to play any of the favorite Smashing Pumpkins songs from here on out. So basically, Billy's saying he doesn't care what the fan wants to hear. He just wants to whatever Billy wants to play. And I'm a massive Billy Corgan fan, and I'm okay with that. I'll listen to anything that he does, but that kind of like ticks me off a little bit that he would say that because it's kind of crapping on the fans. But what do you guys think?
Well, yeah, that sounds like Billy. I mean, he likes to be controversial. It draws attention to the band. But I tend to agree with you here. I think, you are no more than what your fans, are willing to pay for. I mean, I'd love to hear the new stuff, but it's pretty nice to go to shows when you get to hear all your favorites.
Well, when you hit that certain level of success, I think you can feel like you can do about anything. But I agree with you guys. I mean, I've heard people go to different shows and they're like, they didn't even play any of their, ones that I went to go listen to. And that's what gets them riled up. I mean, at least do a few of them.
I had the best experience of my life going just the last big tour that they did, a few years back in Omaha, where they played everything. Okay. Then instead, they were up there. They did have an opener that played very short, briefly, but then they played every single thing I could have possibly spewed out in one night, and it was the best night of my life. And then Billy's doing this, and like after I listened to that, I don't know if you guys have heard that latest album that they put out. It was supposed to be, it's okay. So it's spelled ATUM, but it's autumn is how it's pronounced. And I was pumped about it. I mean, it's 33 songs. It's basically a rock opera, right? It was supposed to be a follow-up to Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. So I was like, oh my God, like finally we get this follow-up to one of the greatest albums of all time. I mean, the sales speak for itself. And this thing was, there's good value to it. I'm not going to, but it was a stinker when it comes to what fans wanted. Like I tried to listen to it again today, just thinking about this. And I think I punched myself in the face at least 6 times.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that he wants to promote some of his new stuff, but at least he's announcing it, and you can get real pissed before you go and then go, and maybe there's some awesome stuff that you'll remember, and then in 20 years from now, you're like, I'm so glad he did that. I don't know.
Can you remember going to? I mean, I've been to many shows, Grandy. Like you've been to it. We all have, but you've been to a lot of shows, especially in the '80s. Can you remember going to some of those off tours, right? Where, they put out a new album, and it wasn't necessarily a success, but then you have to sit there and it is great musicianship, but you have to like listen to just just the songs from that album, and you're like, oh my gosh, like, can I just hear Sweet Home Alabama from Leonard Skinner, for God's sakes?
Yeah, I can think of several situations where that came into play. It's mostly because the band builds up this reputation with their hit songs, and then of course they put out a new album, and maybe the problem is we went from a time where bands were very specific at creating whole albums where, real fans would probably like 90% of all the songs on the album, even if only 1 or 2 got a ton of airplay. But now everything is so focused on, hitting the next hit and putting out single songs, and albums are kind of a way of the past. I think that may play into what's going on here, if you know what I mean.
Well, and Billy's still promoting. You know, he owns NWA Wrestling, and he's been trying to revive that for quite a while. But I'm starting to think that maybe Billy's taken a few pile drivers from the wrestlers, and I think Billy's always been out there. And don't get me wrong, I'd probably sacrifice 8 cats at least so that I could go hang out with Billy Corgan or listen to him play anything. But Billy's really letting me down on this one. He's kind of Courtney loving me in a way.
But this could be kind of a publicity stunt, though.
Yeah.
I mean, they could be putting it out this way and kind of checking the reaction. You know what I'm trying to say? Sometimes you got to be controversial to get the attention. So maybe he's playing that game a little bit.
Well, and it's not like you have to go out and be like, who's this guy? You know, he's very well known. I mean, like I said, he can do it once. I mean, Beyonce's coming out with a country album. I mean, I think he's going to be able to do whatever. But I do agree. You want to go hear that song or those songs that bring back memories. But I think it's something to do with businessy stuff too. And I don't know, but who knows? Maybe it's
Well, you'll know right away if he goes out and the first several shows get bad reviews,
right,
and the fans turn against it. That will be the telling story, because then future ticket sales will be way down.
I think he swayed my opinion on this. I think that he's actually, to be honest with you, because he's a very smart businessman, I think that he's playing the heel right now. Okay, in wrestling, there's the good guy and there's the heel. I think that Billy is pulling the wool over our eyes, blowing smoke, and I think he's going to come out firing with this new guitar player, which, mind you, they have a new guitar player now. Beautiful lady. I was a little kind of bummed out because I thought maybe it was kind of a money grab. Like, let's get this super hot female guitar player.
Hey, I'm down with that though. I love female drummers, bass. Come on, bring it on.
All about girl power. I know when I said that to my wife, I was like, oh crap. Like, this is because I was mad because they didn't hire me or they had an open tryout, right, for anybody. And so we're all like, oh my God, this is our big chance. And then none of us do anything with it. And then this super hot chick comes in, and she's
gonna have to kill it then. She's gonna have to be rock on, because if you're like, well, you're hot, but can you play?
Oh, I want a better album than the last one. So that's all I had for this. Did you guys have any quotes or lyrics for this one, or do we want to scratch the vinyl on this conversation?
Randy,
let's scratch it. Let's scratch it.
All right, so we moved on. We scratched the vinyl on that last deal. We're moving on to it. We have a guest that's coming in, and he's going to talk to us right now, and I'm pretty pumped about it because this guy is another musician, but he's kind of on another level. I mean, he was on a couple very successful bands, I believe, here in town. They did really well. He does covers. They kind of do things on their own. He records. He's a producer. I think he even produces a rapper in Europe. And this guy, he even went to Berklee. So I didn't go to Berklee. I learned guitar from myself in my basement. So so our paths are not the same. But I think his name's Chris Scheidies, and I think Brooke and Randy, you guys know this guy, right? You guys know a little bit more about this guy than me.
Yeah, he's a really good friend of ours. Yeah.
Yeah, Chris played bass in one of our favorite local bands, Flannel Channel. And I've had plenty of opportunity to sit down and talk with Chris about music, and he likes a lot of different kinds of music. I think you'll find him very interesting. He's been in the local scene. Like you said, he's producing a European rapper, I think, right now. I think I'm looking forward to this interview.
Yeah, we'll ask him for some information. If you guys are interested, I'm sure you get a hold of him somehow, or at least look him up. He's a very intelligent, intellectual person that is very talented. You're going to enjoy this.
He is. So I don't want to give up any more of the secret sauce here. Let's bring Chris on right now. So stick around, everybody. Buckle up. Keep your arms and legs in the vehicle, and stick around for this interview with Chris Scheidies.
We have a wonderful guest here today, and I would love to introduce my beautiful, intriguing, weird AF friend with a web of talents. He's a producer, musician, business owner, writer, safe to say a great gardener. He is jack of many trades. Drum roll, please. Well, maybe a bass slap. Welcome, Chris Scheidies.
Hello.
Hey, bud. How you doing?
Hey, not so bad. How are you?
Good. Now, hey, listen, you have so many talents, and we want to just kind of listen to everything that you do. We want to get to know you a little bit. So, for one, let's talk about maybe some of the bands that you're in or what you are doing right now.
Yeah, I've been in some bands in Lincoln over the years. I was in Flannel Channel, it's kind of the best known one. I was in a band called Ivory Hill that I loved, and I'm working on a new group with Rich, who was in Jam Brady's, and Greg, who was in Flannel Channel, on a new band called Flux Radio. That's like an '80s new wave tribute band. So we're doing quite a bit with that, and I think that's what I got going as far as live music right now.
And what else, you also produce music too, right?
Yeah, so I make music under the name Drunk Pedestrians for like hip hop and electronic, and I actually have a record deal with that group with a French label. And the last record I got to put out on vinyl and everything, so that was pretty exciting.
Yeah, I've got to hear a lot of your work, and
Yeah,
I say it's really, really good. And people, you guys got to check it out. Do you have like a website or something where people could go to listen?
yeah. So, well, Drunk Pedestrians is on all the streaming services, so you can get on your Apple Music, Spotify, whatever. And then, of course, drunkpedestrians.com, and then all the socials, which I'm terrible at keeping up with on that project, but. And there's a whole like backstory. It's like a fake band, and it's quite hilarious how all that came to be.
Well, welcome to Scratch the Vinyl, Chris. This is Randy.
Hey.
It's great to have you on the show today. Big introduction from Brooke. I'm very familiar with a lot of your work, and I'm actually really excited to see what you got going on. What else are you doing right now?
As far as musically or just anything, or?
Yeah, musically.
Yeah. Well, I'm always writing and working on new stuff, and I aspire to be a great lyricist, but that's a long journey that you're always practicing at, right? And then just playing a bunch of bass, learning a whole bunch of songs.
Chris, I too am a recording artist. I too am a producer and everything. So I was really excited to talk to you. My name's Kane, by the way. If we're kind of really new now, but and what I like to ask people, especially like yourself, is what's the process for you? I know what the process is for me as a lyricist and a writer, but is the process for you words first and then music? Do you get melody first and then build off of that? How do you usually write?
Yeah, so if I want to write the lyrics, I always start there. Like if I'm going to write the lyrics of the song, where a lot of the like Drunk Pedestrians I produce, another like a rapper is going to get that and write. So I'm going to start music first, but I'm a pretty big believer in starting with lyrics, and the music should support what the message of the lyrics is. But as I get older, I realize that is a minority opinion and probably wrong, but that is still how I approach it. I don't know that people care about lyrics, but I sure do.
I don't think there's any wrong answers to it. I think it's just whatever suits a person. I personally, I write melodies and riffs and everything first. Mm-hmm. And then I just listen to them over and over again. And, I write a lot of poetry and everything. And so I just start kind of tying it together. And what's the thesis of the song? What am I really trying to get here? Sometimes as a lyricist, I don't know. Are you the type of lyricist that will talk about, like, you look around the room and you see an ashtray and, or are you a guy who really thinks it through and comes up with words that are meaningful to you?
Yeah, I'm probably more on at least I aspire to be. I wouldn't compare myself, but I would more like the Leonard Cohen, Bob Dylan style, where it's more like, what's the deeper meaning of the universe type of thing. And then sometimes you write with like, how can we just make this catchy? You kind of have to think about an audience and how do we get this stuck in people's heads. But I try to write a little more stream of consciousness, I suppose.
Right. So how, what we want to know, I guess what the listeners probably going to want to know is how the heck do you know Brooke, and what capacity do you know this crazy lady?
Well, Brooke and I are kind of Barry Body's best friends and have been for many years. I met her when she was working at the where was that? Watering Hole.
Yeah, the best.
I believe it was the best. Yep, with my don't need to go into too many details, but my now ex-wife, we would go in there all the time, and we kind of became friends that way. And then post-divorce, we've been friends and hang out all the time.
You came into
Kelly's.
Kelly. Yep. And I remember I was like, how do I know? And then you told me the story and I was like, oh yeah, I know. Yep.
Yeah.
And then the guy that I was dating, Zach from Flannel Channel, I introduced you guys together because you were talking about how you were into music and you went to school for it. And I mean, all of this crazy stuff. And I was like, hey, you got to meet. And that's how Flannel Channel, you got into that. And you guys were in some other bands and jammed together. That was a really serendipitous moment. I think it was pretty cool, actually. And we became really good friends. A couple too many shots some nights, though.
Yeah. Fair amount of drinking.
Yeah.
Well, it was funny because I'd go in and hang out and you would say things like, oh, you need to meet my boyfriend. He's a musician. He's into computers. And I was like, oh, sure he is. Yeah, I had just come off of, master's degree at Berklee and then I worked at Sweetwater Sound doing consulting for actual rock stars. And then, to hear like, oh, my boyfriend's a musician. I was like, that's fine. I'm sure that's cool. But I wasn't really interested in talking to anyone about that stuff. And unbeknownst to me, you were also telling him the same thing. You're like, there's this guy coming into Kelly's. You guys need to hang out. And he had the same reaction. He's like, yeah, I'm sure you have this amazing person coming in. Yep. I'm going to work really hard to meet him. So Zach and I avoided becoming friends on purpose for months, to your frustration, I believe. And then when we started hanging out, it was like no one else existed in the room. Him and I were talking about tubes and circuits and amps. It was drive you nuts, if I remember right.
Absolutely, it did. I was like, hello. And I would just, you know what, though? I just get you guys some shots. You guys started talking. And I was like, yep. And then I was like, you know what? You guys have a good night. I'm going to go ahead and go home. And I'm by the way, guys.
That
happened a lot.
You hit it off.
Well, I don't think this is so lot different than how I met Chris. Trying to convince him to do karaoke, to be honest with you.
Oh, I was like, nope, not going to do that.
He says, no way. I'm professional.
No, it was more that I'm not a singer and I don't want to make a fool of myself.
Hey, now I'm not a singer and I make a fool of myself all the time.
Hey, he does a mean version of Amish Paradise.
Yeah, that's Weird Al, I think, is legit. One of the greatest musicians ever. And I think he's, from a musician standpoint, underrated. Yep. Yeah. Yep.
Genius lyricist for sure.
Yep.
So, speaking of stuff like that, what kind of influences, like, I know you're kind of into a lot of different music. So what's kind of your influences on a lot of that?
Well, it depends on what type of music you're talking about. Like if I'm doing writing, I took a writing class that Neil Gaiman made. I don't know if you know who he is, but he wrote Good Omens and American Gods and Sandman, a bunch of famous stuff that's TV shows now. And he talked about if you're writing something and it's so personal, you don't want to give it to your friends. You don't want to show people because it's like it'll break your heart, kind of. That's when you're kind of getting somewhere. So when I write lyrics, I think about that a lot. As far as specific artists, I'm deeply inspired by Leonard Cohen and Bob Dylan. Like I said, Tom Petty, I find a very inspiring songwriter. Brooke knows this, but probably my favorite like single solo artist of all time is this gal named Amanda Palmer, and I think she's just one of the most fearless artists I've ever met. And I certainly would love to be as fearless as she is in all ways. So I could go on and on. There's a kind of an unknown, like more religious songwriter named Don Schaefer that's been a huge inspiration. And even though I'm not religious, I think his lyrics are beautiful and honest and quite incredible. So he's kind of a weird one that you guys might not know about.
Yeah, man, love all of that. That's great.
And you've introduced me to quite a few new artists. And you are a big fan, and I appreciate that. You've got me some records that I absolutely love.
Heck yeah! I love female energy. I love female vocalists quite a bit. Yeah.
So we got to know: do you still like to put the vinyl on the turntable?
I actively buy records. In fact, I've been thinking about it more and more. Like any record I spend any time on at all, I would like to buy because I want to listen to music intentionally. Like it's really easy to put on a Pandora, or I use Apple Music, but it's easy to throw on a station and forget about it. But I want to be forced to like walk up, pick a physical thing out, and listen to the whole record. Like, I think what I'm most into as far as recorded music is the statement of the complete album rather than a song. And that's why I think Pink Floyd is one of my favorite bands. Like, they proved with Dark Side that, like, definitively the album itself could be a work of art, not just an individual song or music contained in it. And obviously Sgt. Pepper kind of plays the trail there as well.
Yep. Us old school guys, we miss those days. I mean, I really mean that. I miss those days where you really go pick out an album and you listen to the whole thing, and you find those hidden gems that most people never hear when you start talking about, oh, I love that band. Did you ever hear that? Like, what are you talking about? You're like, well, man, you got to check that out.
There's a great and female vocalist. They've kind of had some hits, but there's this great band called Sixpence None the Richer, and they're the best example of that. Like, their radio hits are okay, but their records are insane. Like, they're such a great band that doesn't get credit for it. That, it's too bad. But you learn that when you listen to the whole record.
It's a blessing and a curse, right? Because we get all of these albums at our disposal, where before we had to go to the store and get them, we had to go to the library and get them. But now we have it, as long as we pay or some of us, borrow it from these companies, not me, of course. But, they're so driven by the single song or like the small EPs. And like, even like, as I tried to release things, I released full albums, and I felt like I had more success with a couple just of the singles that I released than I did my albums. So now I'm going to repackage them in different ways. I pulled it all off. I'm going to remaster and do different things. And it's just kind of frustrating, though. Like, how do you navigate through that? So you said that you like getting into the full album thing. So are you trying to release full albums, no EP?
Oh yeah. Very, very few. If you go and look at my discography online, I have one EP that I worked on with a UK rapper, and that's still 6 songs. Like, it's a complete statement in itself. But the last Drunk Pedestrians record that I put out came out just before COVID. It's called F Sharp, and it is very much in that vein. Like, it is, I designed it to be listened to front to back. And actually, I have a good friend who's a very successful mastering engineer in Nashville. And I met him when I worked at Sweetwater. I helped him build his first studio in Brooklyn. And I had him master it 2 different ways, one for digital, one for vinyl. And I was like very specific in that I wanted this album to have a lot of dynamic range so you could listen to a long time and not get fatigued. Where I think, Kane, like, so much music's just at the maximum compression. It doesn't breathe. It's meant to be played on the radio real loud for 3 minutes, and you walk away. And that's all right. There's nothing wrong. There's some great songs made that way, but I want to hear a complete idea over a longer period of time musically, and I want to enjoy it. And so I mastered the vinyl with that in mind, and all analog. Also, he did 100% analog mastering. No computer was just at the end to record it all.
So here's a question for you, since you are a fellow vinyl collector like myself. How big would you say your collection is right now, if you had to guess?
I mean, I can show you.
I might have a few. Sorry.
Oh yeah, Brooke has a bunch. Here, I can turn on my camera. I just might be moving around. This is in my bedroom, just what I want to immediately listen to collection. That's my like small collection in my bedroom for when I want to listen to records. So I don't know, what is that? 300-400?
It adds up fast, man.
I don't know.
I buy them a box at a time, from people. I buy all sorts of, online. I hit all the thrift stores. I buy all the crap nobody wants that I find to be gold. So, I mean, I just love talking to other collectors. That's what this show's about, man. It's not just record to vinyl, but it's music in general. But you are the perfect guest for us on this.
What else is out there for?
Exactly.
I mean,
Chris, when you do vinyls, you have to do at least 3: one to give away, one to keep, and one to really scratch up and listen to all the time.
Yep, exactly. I did try to be a scratch DJ for a while, and I played guitar so long it feels like it's the opposite type of movement, and my brain just couldn't get it done. So I gave that up. But I do agree.
I tried that many years ago too, and it just didn't compute to me. So I just threw my hands up and grabbed my guitar again.
Yeah, that's. I think nothing wrong with that.
Hey, Chris, have you checked out any of the shows that have been around town lately? I mean, There's been a lot going on here in our area.
No, I've been the last show. Trying to think. I go to Omaha. I travel for concerts a lot. I'm trying to think the last Lincoln show I was at. The last show I was at in Lincoln was either Lacuna Coil, who I'm a huge, like massive. I think that's my favorite metal band. And then I saw a Pink Floyd tribute band here as the last two, I think, at the Bourbon I went to. But I'm seeing Roger Waters in LA this year, so I'm excited about that.
Nice.
They're probably my all-time favorite band. I think I have a Pink Floyd tattoo and everything.
Here's a question for you. Are you a Waters guy or are you a Gilmore guy? Or are you?
Oh, man.
I know it's tough to put the gun to you like that, but I'm a Floyd fan too. So
it's both. You're going to make fun of me a little bit because I'm going to say like some basic bitch things here. But I actually think Wish You Were Here is maybe the greatest pop song ever written. I just think they were, as far as I know, one of the first to kind of do the juxtaposition of two opposite things lyrically, right? Like, can you tell a green field from a cold steel rail? Like, just very, and the 90s ran with that like crazy. Like, half of Alanis Morissette's songs are that sort of back and forth, right?
I know, I love it.
But I couldn't pick. And there are kind of two different bands based on who was kind of in charge, but they're both so good, such good writers.
it's hard to. And then there's a caveat to that. Then there's an "Are you a Sid Barrett guy?" And then your mind is blown, right? Oh my god.
And I absolutely am. And I feel for that guy when I learned his story. That I think for the longest time everyone thought he blew his brains out on psychedelics, but it turns out he was schizophrenic and using psychedelics to like deal with life at all to try to be normal. And it's just such a sad, what a brilliant person. But I think Wish You Were Here and Shine On You Crazy Diamond are both about him, which those songs kind of have a whole new meaning when you realize they're about them deeply missing their friend and musical collaborator and not even knowing if that person even exists inside their own mind anymore. It's kind of interesting to look at those from that context.
It's the saddest story in music, man. One of, and there's a lot of sad stories. But Sid Barrett's story, we should definitely, I know it's been done before, but we should all do kind of an alternate take on it. Maybe even have Chris back and do kind of a take on Sid Barrett and all that psychedelic rock, and man, it was just so good. But,
oh, yeah.
What I want to ask you also, Chris, is, and this is the crux of the whole show, is what does music mean to you, man? Like, it's a playlist to your life. I know what it means to me, and I have earbuds in all day long. It just gets me through. What does music do for you?
Oh man, this is a question I think about a lot. The most base answer is I think it feeds my dopamine in the way that I need it to. You know what I mean? Like that's actually what made sense to me. It made it when I was growing up. The minute I turned on a soundtrack, I could think correctly, right? Like my brain would work. Like I could actually get other work done once music was playing. But then when you get into making it, especially playing live music, that's different. That's more about, I want to connect with another human being and make a once in a lifetime moment, right? Like we're going to do something kind of crazy and it's only going to happen once because it's live, right? And you can't, the magic from listening to a record versus a live band is different kind of magic, right? And, but to be able to connect with another human being in a live context and just feel like life is okay right now. Maybe tomorrow we'll wake up and it's going to be crappy again, but right now in this moment together, we can let go. And that's kind of, I hate to use the term chase the dragon, but that's what's the most interesting to me, really.
We talk about this all the time, that how just the right song or the right performance, not just connect one-on-one, but it could connect to millions of people at the same time. It's just,
well, I would argue you take a look at like Rage Against the Machine. Like they got me into reading Noam Chomsky in the 90s, and I probably have a lot of the political views I do because of bands like that. And I think a lot of people in my generation probably are similar, right? That's totally real change.
Agree. No, totally agree.
Well, and you can go to a Rage Against the Machine, or you could go to Alanis Morissette, or you could go to Billy Idol or country, any of them. It just depends on the artist. But you always, I think live, it just hits you differently. And it's the lyrics and the feeling. I think it coincides together. I don't know if there's necessarily one better than the other, but I love live music too. That's something that I enjoy.
Yeah. Can I kind of wax philosophical about Flannel Channel for a second?
Oh yeah.
Something I always appreciate Zach did, he was the main guy in Flannel Channel. I always appreciated his approach to that. Like him and I talked at length about how when you get on stage, if you're not humbled, that's embarrassing, and you're only there because people are willing to take time out of their schedule to come see you. And time is the most valuable resource. Like we all have X amount of hours in our life and we're done. We can all make more money, but to take your time out and spend with a musician for the night is a bigger deal than I think most musicians realize. And I really appreciated Flannel Channel and Zach in particular, because he understood the importance of that relationship. And so we could just have these magic nights all the time, Sorry, go ahead, Brooke.
No. I was just saying, like, he would always say to you guys or himself or on our way there, he'd always say, I play my shows like it's my last show.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
He appreciated everyone there. And you guys, we'd all not make fun of him, but he would always say, I appreciate you. He said it every moment he could.
Yeah.
He would go out there and talk to people. And he was so good at that. And kudos to him. And you would do the same thing. Like when we make our guest list, get in, we had like 89 people.
I didn't care.
Yeah, it was about people coming in and enjoying the music. And we talk about that sometimes, like, would you have a cover charge? And well, yeah, you'd have a cover charge, but sometimes there are people that can't afford it or, don't really know the music, and to get them in there just to hear it. Then after that, they'll start coming more and more and more. And to give them that good sense of, you guys' energy was it's so positive and it was so much fun. And I loved like everybody that played in that band, and it was a good time. I think you guys did a phenomenal job.
I've been to 4 Flannel Channel shows, and let me tell you what, as somebody who had been around the scene downtown for many years, there were only a few bands that I would go see regularly. I'd see one or two every once in a while, but man, some of those shows, they were really good. Like I'll tell you what, I'll say this. One of those shows in particular, I considered one of the top 5 days in my life. No joke.
Oh, thank you.
No joke. And you go back. It's funny. I keep a lot of pictures from that show, and I look at those and go, man, this is me really having fun. And man, I just love the way you guys connected to the audience. And I don't care if there was 50 people there or 500 people there. It was, I always felt like I was one of those guys who loved to go right up to the front of the stage and just get blasted. And it was awesome, man.
I love seeing you out there. Yeah.
Yeah. I always had to go sit in the green room if I got a little too excited, because I ass myself.
Brooke, we know you're all about the free drinks, Brooke. We know.
Well, Flannel Channel was weird because I had never done a cover band. I'd always played original music and written my own bass lines, and it was Zach and I kind of went back and forth early on the discussion of if I should even be involved. And I think he saw a video of me playing in Ivory Hill with Aaron that he was like, okay, Chris is joining the band. And but it was weird. But how Zach did it, I didn't feel like I was playing anyone else's music. I played it like it was mine. I played it like that's a different mission, right? It's like we're here to connect, not worry about whose song it is. And Zach really showed me that you could have kind of an original artistic statement even in a tribute band in a way that I was not aware of before. So it was a learning experience.
Well,
that's great.
You guys did do your own music. Like you created, like when you did that Britney Spears song, you made it your own. And it was so cool to hear it, because I was like, you're doing Britney Spears. and I heard it and I was like, oh, this is amazing. Like your guys' energy together when you play together, I loved it. And I would watch you practice sometimes, so I knew like if it was like somebody was off just a hair, you did this cute little smile, or you guys would kind of look at each other. And I loved seeing that, watching your guys' dynamic and the way you work together. It was so cool.
Well, it's normally me forgetting a note, and then everyone's smiling and looking at me and showing me what note I should be playing to get back on track. But I hate the song. There's only I love almost all music. There's only a couple songs in life that I can't stand, and one of them is "I Would Walk 500 Miles." The Proclaimers. I hate it so much. And I mentioned that in rehearsal once, and Nick, the drummer, Zach's brother, was like, "We'll change it. Let's go." And we rewrote all the music and made it like this weird punk jam. Just because he was like, "We'll make it a little more fun for you," and we were always doing cool stuff like that.
Do you know why? Do you know why they wanted to play that?
Because of you, probably.
Because I had some of my girlfriends were like, "Hey, we want to listen to this song," and I said, "You know what? I gotta know the people. I'm gonna go ahead and ask them." And Zach was like, "You've got to be kidding me!" I go, and you know what? Those chicks just dug it all. I mean, man,
I loved it.
Yeah, they loved it, and I loved how you did it. Yeah, it was really good.
You got to listen to the females behind the band. You know, the females are the ones that are going to make the party good. Like, you know, as a fellow, you know, I was a cover bander, and I could tell you our paths were not the same. You were the best night of somebody's life, and I'll bet that some of the bands that I was in were the absolute worst. It might have even been the worst time in my life, but I had alcohol to get me through.
To make it all right. Yeah.
Well, Cade's he has written songs about that now. Those are his best hits now, is songs about drinking gin and
my best friends. All my good ladies in my life are all alcohol.
It's got to find something to do in Nebraska, right?
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this: did you guys, it doesn't matter what cover band you're. It doesn't matter if you look like a guy like me, you know, a real goon, you know, or you know, good-looking guys like yourselves. But you always have those females that are willing to show those tatas at the show, even at local level. How many tatas would you say you've seen over your professional playing career? I've seen quite a few.
Oh, I got the last final show. Someone threw a bra at me on stage. That had never happened.
Do you remember when I threw all the underwear up there?
Well,
yeah.
On Creep? Yeah. I went and bought a bunch of underwear, all different sizes. And I handed them out to all my friends, and you guys played Creep. And as you guys are playing, we're flicking it up there. And one of our friends got it right on Zach's guitar, and it was just flapping around the whole time he was singing. And I was like, "Yeah, this is a panty dropper." That was the whole point.
Well, you know your audience, if they're granny panties, you know, you gotta be careful. Well, we really do appreciate you coming in and talking with us today, Chris. We know you got to head out into to the big city somewhere, and man, we really appreciate it.
Actually.
Nice.
Yeah. So catching a flight here pretty soon.
Well, guys, you got anything else for Chris before we let him get out of here?
No, just thank you for being on the show, man, and I hope we have you back. What do you got, Brooke?
Chris, I appreciate you. I can't wait to see what you have in store for the future. I know you got some really cool things going on.
Yeah, Flux Radio is going to be, I think it's going to go really well. Greg from Flannel Channel is in it, and then a couple other people you would know. So it's we're about ready to start planning out pretty serious. So yeah, you'll start to see it, and we're working on a big stage production. So hopefully it all goes according to plan.
Well, let us know, and we'll be glad to come and check it out. And
absolutely,
you're always welcome here on Scratch the Vinyl, man.
I love it. That sounds great to me.
Man, that was an awesome interview with Chris. I love talking to him about. I don't know. I want to hug myself after that one. And hug him if he was here, but he'd probably be like, "Oh my gosh." Ugh.
Well, we could have probably got a little more out of him, but he had to catch a flight out to Florida today. So we hope to get Chris back again for sure.
Oh, he'll definitely come back. And I'm telling you, he has so much to say, and he's just so, I mean, it makes me feel like I need to go read a book. Yeah, I can't wait for him to come back on.
No, it was cool. It was cool diving into one of my favorite subjects with him, which we get Pink Floyd, the Roger Waters, David Gilmour, who's in what camp, who's with who. You know, some people are just with all of them. But I'm a Gilmour guy over Waters. I think Gilmour is far more talented. Just me personally. Okay, I know people are going to disagree, but I think that David Gilmour's the guy who, when you really think about Pink Floyd, if you're not listening to Syd Barrett, like the early stuff, this is the sound that you're looking for is David Gilmour, right? So that's my opinion, but it was cool talking to him about that. I honestly had never seen Flannel Channel before. I know that's sad, but when they were playing a lot, I was playing a lot. most times back then. And so it's like I just never got. I always wanted to. So I mean, to see some of these cover bands on like an upper echelon, like putting together like stage value and all that stuff is different. Because for me, the most stage value I had was hanging a bunch of Barbies at the Ding in Raymond, and just getting the locals all riled up. But I mean, that's my type of a stage show. But I never got to do a big production.
What I really love, and Chris brought this out in that interview, was that kind of that old school feel, the vinyl, the and you know what? That's how I would describe watching those guys go play. Old school rock, get the crowd into it, great music. I mean, that's what going to see a good local band is all about, in my opinion.
And they're all seasoned musicians. They've been doing this for a long time. I mean, you got people that are doctors and, that maybe were self-taught, or maybe went to Berklee and did it, but they're all very, very, very talented musicians. And to learn about that and to learn what they go through, and like Kane talking to you about being a musician, I mean, it takes a lot to practice, set up, cost a lot to buy this good equipment to make it sound great. And when you have a plethora of musicians in there that can all give something, it's just awesome. And I know that their new band that's coming out, he got to tell me a little more about it. I got to see some things that they're bringing up, and it's going to be phenomenal. And when they get that going, we're having them back on, and we're going to figure out where they're going to be at, because it would be really cool to go see their band live.
And not just that, but when he talked about how they were able to kind of take all those cover songs and still kind of make them their own a little bit. Mm-hmm. And, I didn't really think of it when I would go see them live, but I tell you what, I get it now. And it's probably why I thought they were so good.
Mm-hmm. Agreed so much. And I think that's why it makes it not easy, but maybe a little easier to write your own stuff, because you're creating something from someone else. And that's kind of hard to do, because all I can listen to is their way of doing it. And to create it yourself is so hard. And so now when you can create something that's your own, it's going to be even more magnificent. And so I think this next band that's coming up, it's going to be it's epic.
Well, I'm always very impressed when artists can take, very well-known contemporary songs and, readjust that arrangement a little bit and kind of make it their own, but still kind of pay tribute to what it was, but we'll give it a new spin on it that, a lot of times I like that.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. It's hard to do too.
Kane, what do you think about that? You're a musician. What do you think?
Got plenty to say on it. That's how I made my bread, to be honest with you, with that, is I got in, country rock bands. And we basically would rewrite a lot of it. So it was hard for when other musicians would have to fill in, because we played a lot of it nothing like what the song, like we played a fast country version of I Want to Be Sedated. We played we did a rockin' versions of country. So, White Lightning. We did all sorts of crazy stuff. We did a rockabilly version of Fight for Your Right. It's part of, I think, I'm not saying that my bands were upper echelon or better, but I'm just saying that's what sets them apart. That's what makes people think about your cover. If you're just standing up there like a freaking robot and you're just playing like the same chords as they're playing on the record, it's like people do. Okay, there are a certain amount of fans out there. I'll say fans or just bar patrons or whatever. And they want you to just be a jukebox, right? They want to come up to you and be like, play that Barbie song. And I say no, because we don't have it on the set list. Bands are not a jukebox, but they should. Some of them bands stand up there and they act like one, right? And we talked about the business too, didn't we? That's what I love about you guys. You guys have other perspectives, okay? Brooke's been in the bar business in other ways. Randy's been the bar business, right? Owning him, and I've been on the other side. I've been the guy, either the bar patron or the band guy, the business guy, and we've all dealt with it in different ways. So did Chris. And it's that they found a way in Flannel Channel to make themselves stand out. And that's what you have to do. So all you cover banders out there, I don't hate cover. I love cover bands. I love what you guys are doing. Just do more. Do a little bit more. Don't do that strange, obscure version of the Nazareth song that nobody's ever heard. just because you got too big of an ego. Don't be afraid to do Sweet Home Alabama and mix it up and do a Elvis medley with it. There's nothing wrong with it, guys. So
I think one of my favorites was they did this spin off of a Britney Spears song, right, Brooke?
Yeah,
And
they did.
And it's like one of their best covers, but you wouldn't think of them doing that song, but how they rearranged it and made it kind of a rock thing. I mean, I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Kane. There is a need for good quality entertainment when it comes to live bands, and just standing up there regurgitating the same old stuff just doesn't cut it anymore. And the bands that can separate themselves and really kind of take their spin on certain songs, I think it's awesome.
yeah. And I'll give a shameless, why not? I'll give a shameless plug. Go check out my version of She Hates Me. All right. I did a Motown kind of a 60s, 70s version of She Hates Me by Puddle of Mud. I pulled all my stuff off of Spotify because they're basically giving me a fraction of a cent and I'm tired of it. And so I'm fighting back. So go give my 8 or 9 views that my mom looked at. Okay.
Hey, I did too. I love him. I love him. Love him. Love him.
My mom
I highly recommend.
Brooke and my mom are the only ones listening right now, but that's okay. But go listen to my version of She Hates Me, and there you'll see a little bit of musicianship and how you can change a song. It can still be tasteful. You can still understand what the song is, but you get so much more out of it. So go listen to that.
It's awesome. I love it.
Also, I'd like to remind our followers to go to our Scratch the Vinyl Facebook page and follow us on there and check out all of our new videos and episodes coming up on our new podcast.
We're also on TikTok under Scratch the Vinyl Podcast. We're on Instagram, on the gram, and we're going to be everywhere. You'll be able to find us all over the place. Also, you'll be checking out our YouTube very soon, where you'll get to see different clips of things that we have, so, different shorts and all sorts of things. Maybe we'll even have full episodes, but the sky's the limit, everybody. So you guys got anything else before we go? This is kind of an action-packed show. Anything else you guys want to cover?
Well, just like to say, we got a lot of great stuff coming up in the community here in Lincoln, Nebraska. Don't be afraid to check out Jazz in June. We'll have Jazz Fest coming up really soon. Just a lot of great stuff coming to the Lincoln area. Look forward to you guys checking that out. And we hope to have a lot of great interviews from a lot of artists from the area very soon.
Yeah, I agree. You guys are going to, if you're from Lincoln or coming to Lincoln, there's a lot of cool stuff this summer going on. Look it up, Google some of these places like Strancy Park, South Point Pavilion, do things at night, like Jazz in June, like you said, the Hub and Soul, that's kind of a newer one. That's 21st Q over by the Plaza Amphitheater. Yeah, it's lots of fun stuff that's going on right now.
Exactly. And all you Lincolnites out here, stop pretending that there's nothing to do in Lincoln. You're fooling. Quit sitting at home and watching the same old shows over and over again. Get out and watch live music. I just read something the other day, and I don't have the stat in front of me, but it doesn't matter. It basically was talking about endorphins and all of that, and how just reducing stress alone. All you have to do is go to a live show. All you have to do, and your stress for that one moment is going, unless of course you hate the band or you have beef with the band, or like the guy slept with you, the lead singer slept with your girlfriend and your mom. But aside from that, those endorphins are going to be pumping. Your neurons are going to be going nuts. Get out there and stop saying that there's nothing to do in Lincoln, because we just proved it to you right here.
And if you have an extra ticket or need to get rid of any of them, go ahead and email us. We can go ahead and get those for you.
All right. Well, I am Kane Stevens. That was Big Red, Brooke Johnson, and the man, the myth himself, Randy Wilson, Mr. Chill. And this is another awesome edition of Scratch the Vinyl.